extra time.
Well, hello all. It's Aparup Chakraborty, Match Commissioner, All India Football Federation. But now, today I will be acting in a different role. Today I will be the host for Proindia, the Captain Speaks. And we have a very, very special guest, Mr. Willie Kirk. He's the head coach of the Everton Football Club in England. So can you believe we have got such a special guest? Scottish Football Association. He was a performance coach as well. Now we moved to Bristol City FC. He was a women's head coach. And now they're the big one, the Manchester United FC women's assistant coach. Then finally we are into Everton FC's women's head coach. So this is a transformation from an accountant to a highly professional football coach. So we will definitely hear from the man who matters the most. That is Mr. Willie Kirk from Everton FC. We start discussing about the women's football and how team management in women's football. So I would rather request Mr. Willie Kirk to elaborate about the pathways from grassroots to elite and how we manage the entire system. So can you please elaborate, sir?
Yeah, I mean, briefly just to take you through, certainly in the UK, what that pathway looks like. And I think I sent Aparup a slide on it in terms of what I think the purpose of each level is as well. And it starts off at grassroots or community. And for me, the purpose of that is to fall in love with the game, which is the most important thing, because you will commit to something, you will give extra effort to something if it's your passion. So I think we need to make sure these girls at as young an age as possible fall in love with the game, and that starts at grassroots and starts at community, and for me should not be taken too seriously and should be just activity for the children. And then certainly in the UK they would progress into what we call in England as an RTC, and the RTC means Regional Talent Club. So this is not exclusive to professional clubs. Anybody can apply to have a regional talent club, but it is signed off by the FA, the Football Association, depending on what you have in place, structures, level of coaches, level of medical, etc. And this is better known as a youth academy. As I said, this is not restricted to professional clubs, but I think it's a lot easier for professional clubs to implement in terms of the resources required. And for me, again, this is, there's got to be an enjoyment level, of course, but this is where the players start to focus. They have a bit of a structure to their sport, and they learn to train, and they understand what it means to train in terms of how it relates to the game. And then from the RTC, for me anyway, I think the next phase of the pathway is the national youth teams, and I think this allows the children to inspire and to plan to reach whatever they want to reach. I think that first taste of pulling on your national team badge should be inspirational, and should certainly, I know at a young age, especially, the home nations here, England, Scotland, Ireland and Wales, as soon as you start playing U15s, national level, you start planning ahead, you start being educated in what it's going to take to become a professional footballer. And then from there, the next step for me would be into a professional U20s programme. More and more clubs, and certainly us at Everton, we now have a full-time U20s programme, which is tied in with education. Obviously the women's game is very much, and it's still in its young stages in terms of finance and what it can offer players. So it's very, very important that we continue to stress the importance of education. But if we can collaborate with an education provider and be flexible around classes, around learning, we can also train them full time. And I think this allows the players to start training to achieve something. And in the best cases, it's that achievement is to become a professional footballer. And from that, you go into the first team, into the professional first team, where you're earning a living. It's your job. It's still a game, but it's a job. And there are thousands and thousands of girls out there who want that job. So what are these girls going to do that's going to make them different and unique to make sure that they are a professional footballer? And then the final piece for me is the senior national team. I think over the coming years, the perception of what is the highest level, is it national team or is it club team? I think just now it's very much national team. But as the Champions League, especially in Europe, as the Champions League grows, as you've seen in the men's, you could argue that the Champions League is now higher profile than the World Cup. But for me just now, the senior national team is a massive achievement, and that's where you're excelling, to be one of those top players in the world, to play on the world stage, to be recognised worldwide, to get global sponsorship, and all obviously the benefits of playing at that level. So it's a long old pathway. I think that pathway is very much ingrained into the women's game now, and any young girl starting out can now see that pathway and can see those worldwide and world known stars. So for me, that's what, especially in the UK, that is what a pathway looks like from start to finish.
I would rather ask another time, what according to you is the importance of scouting in developing a team? We have got a fair bit of idea about the process and the pathways of grassroots elite. Now, from the next step, I'm asking about the importance of scouting, which severely lacks in India.
It's getting more important because we have more girls playing the game. I think in the past there was less players to choose from, and they almost fell into place. Whereas the numbers have increased so much, and scouting becomes important, not just at academy level, but at the first team level. I think we can all have a beautiful idea that everyone in your first team comes through the youth academy. I don't necessarily think that's a healthy thing, because I think, especially with the world has become such a smaller place, and we can learn so much from different cultures. So for me, if we get the youth academy right, we will have a constant stream of players coming into the first team. But I think we also need to have players from different nationalities, different backgrounds, different experiences, because I think it all adds to that first team learning experience. As the game grows, and again, we've certainly beginning to put in plans at Everton that the scouting at the youth level will not only be grassroots games, but it will be European competition. So we will start scouting at under 17 tournaments, U17 tournaments, to try and bring overseas players to the club a little bit earlier. And we don't just bring them across as a 21-year-old first team player, but they come across as a 16-year-old into our education programme. So I think scouting is certainly getting more important as the numbers grow.
Hi Willie, hi.
Hi.
We, just our company itself, we are obviously looking to build football generally in India. It could be men's, could be women's. One of the questions I have is, how can we actually get more clubs like yourselves interested in developing the game in India? It's a huge marketplace, as you know, probably the biggest in the world. The passion for the game is there. They are in their infancy, I'm sure everyone agrees with that, but it's growing and it's only going to get bigger. How can we actually get, clubs like yourselves involved? It doesn't have to be monetary. I'm thinking more on the lines of imparting your philosophy, your technical knowledge, those sort of aspects, which will really help, schools, academies, even semi-pro clubs, which all have, women's players.
I think, there's a lot of things we can obviously do. It's not just, talking about philosophies. There's coach education, which I think can be really powerful. And for me, coach education works both ways, because, it could be UK coaches coming to India and learning something from the Indian coaches. I think it's got to work. These things always work two ways. I remember I did some coach education when I worked for the Scottish FA, and and I'm supposed to be there as a tutor, teaching early stages, coaching certificates, and every single course I learned something from the participants just as much as they hopefully learned something from me. So I think these things are always two-way. So I think coach education can be a big thing.
Yes.
And that can be inviting coaches to India. It can be obviously be done online. I think one positive out this global pandemic that we're currently in is people are understanding that not everything has to be done face to face. It can be done on things like this and webinars. So I think that has probably opened everyone's eyes to a lot of things in terms of how we can do things. I think obviously India's can be a big attraction for UK teams in terms of increasing their own exposure. It's obviously it's such a large population, it's such a passionate country, and I think that there are a lot of exchanges in terms of just an awareness. Can Everton FC visit India to do coach education, and on the back of that we have 100,000 new Everton supporters.
Yes.
It can be simple as that, and it's just an awareness. It's just awareness between the countries, and that awareness, there will be learning along the way. There will be joint benefits, I think, to Indian football and to, if it's UK teams that we're talking about. So I think there can be a lot of benefits there. Okay. But yeah, certainly I think it starts with things like this, and then that moves on to invites, it moves on to future dialogue, and then we can grow things from there.
One is definitely, we having a Women's World Cup happening in India in 2021. Do you think that would have an impact on women's football in India as in general? It would, change the mindset of the parents, take this game seriously for the children, because I face the same issue with my daughter. But, and I really wanted her to pursue football, but it wasn't taken seriously by the school, really. So, and then she, just because of all that bullying, she stepped out of football. So I really felt bad that she lost interest in football at that point. So would this basically give a little bit of seriousness to the country as a whole for women in women's football arena, basically?
Yeah, I think hosting or participating on a stage like that can definitely inspire young players, but also capture the imagination of the public and the government and the schools and whoever that may be. We need to have these things on television. I think it becomes really important. Certainly when I came down to England, I arrived in England just 2 months before the 2015 World Cup. Right. And the 2015 World Cup in Canada, where England performed well and came third in it, in the space of that 2 or 3 months, when we resumed the league afterwards, there was a whole lot of new interest, and you could feel it, you could see it, the increased levels of interest. And then there was maybe a bit of a stagnation, and then when we reached the next World Cup in 2019 in France, again, because England performed well, Scotland were also there, so we had 2 UK teams to watch. The people watching on television, it just captured the public's imagination.
Right.
And that then, it didn't just bring attention to the England team, it brought attention to France, to the US, And now the public in the UK didn't just know English players, they knew players from across the world. So I think these tournaments, we need to get broadcasters involved, because I think that is the key to exposing other people to it. And once you get the government backing and you get the schools backing, I think everything sort of gains momentum from that. I think that also the other thing is we need these tournaments, and if they're on TV, it can start to create role models. You know, that can be, if not a US player, it can be an Indian player, it can be an Indian sportswoman. It doesn't have to be a footballer to inspire footballers. It can be an athlete that inspires footballers. It can be a powerful woman in business. You know, I think we sometimes narrow the focus and think it's only footballers that can inspire footballers. You know, but I think we're in the business of inspiring females, not just female footballers.
Aparup, Willie, what we do is Amit and I, we do sports tours to all the European clubs from India. So we are developing that here. So now my question is, I'm asked this question most of the times when I go and meet, clients or prospective clients and the clubs and the academies, all the schools here to go in, to clubs like yours, to get a week or 2 weeks training there with the coaches there to develop their skills to a different level altogether. So they always ask me, what would a 1 week or a 10-day or a 2-week course, training thing help us? So how do you think a short-term training program like this for about a week, 10 days or 2 weeks impact on the, on the players, the skills of how would it improve their skills?
I think it depends on a lot of things. You know, first of all, is this a European club visiting India, or is it an Indian club visiting Europe? Can we make sure that it's more than just training for the moment, but also training for the future, to give, not just to train the players to inspire them, but to upskill the coaches and educate the coaches, because it's the coaches that are going to have to then carry that forward. You know, a one week training course is excellent. You know, a new face, a new voice, or a new surroundings is enough to enjoy that. And again, it depends if we're talking about adults or if we're talking about kids. But if we're talking about children, I remember going on, coaching courses when I was 11-year-old, and I don't know if the level of coaching was any good, but I loved it because it was different. So I think anything can motivate someone within that week, but the key to me is to get those coaches upskilled to then carry forward that into, we're still doing these things a month down the line, 6 months down the line, and then we start improving these young players. And just, there might be some learning about just professionalism, about, it could be something simple like the way we structure our training session. It could be any little nuggets like that coaches can learn from and volunteers can learn from.
Right. Because we also do have when we send the kids out from here, we ensure that the coaches who train those kids here in India also travel with them, so that they, get the same level of training. When they come back, they can continue with the same training.
Yeah,
so I do agree with you on the coach education bit. Thank you. That's
really important. I think that is when we're trying to develop a club, a region, or a country. I think probably the most important thing is the coach education.
Right.
Because we need those coaches to carry things forward, to make sure that it's long term.
Yeah.
And the players are not exposed to 2 weeks of greatness and then back to mediocrity.
Agreed.
Sorry to interrupt, but that is one of the problems in India, because there aren't that many D, C or B licensed coaches, full stop. And I guess that comes right from the top, from the AIFF, because that's something I wanted to ask Kuntala about that, because, you know, the AIFF doesn't seem to do much towards women's football, especially. As what I've read, only 5% of their annual budget goes towards women's football. So, you know, that something has to give if there's going to be a change. And I agree with what Willie says, you know, that's going to come from coaching the coaches, making them better and imparting that knowledge onto the kids.
I think the FA having a plan, and I don't know if the Indian FA have a plan, but, you know, in terms of, there are so many things we need to improve. You know, we want to improve pitches, facilities, we want to get more children playing, we want to upskill the coaches. There's so many things that we see as a priority, but until someone at association level pulls all that together into a plan, where we're focusing a little bit of time on a lot of different things, instead of maybe having 2 or 3 main pillars that we really want to focus in on and improve those. And then it may feel like it's taken longer to get to where we want to get to, but once we do get there, it should be hopefully there for long term.
All right, I want Kuntala ma'am to just enlighten upon these things, because she has been a player and now she has been a coach of a very, very prominent club in India. So I want her to just highlight upon what exactly Amit said.
It is very much important that when you are having this coach education program, you need to monitor the coaches too, because what they are doing. Because once I get passed from the coach as a coach, what happened? I do my own job to the different club. It's not enough for the development. If once it is monitoring, once we monitor the coaches, automatically what will happen? We'll have a pressure on behind of us. Automatically, if it will be looked after by AIFF, it will give us some job that yes, you have to work over there. Automatically, player will get developed. Because whatever today we are doing the license in part of the coach education. Each and every coaches, they are doing their own license, and afterwards they go to the different places and do their job. But where everybody, the philosophy is not the same. Everybody is doing on their own. It is not the pathway of development. It should be the one pathway that everybody have to follow. And these coaches will be monitored by AFF head coach, that yes, their performance level. Automatically what will happen? Our football will develop.
Okay, thank you. So for this context, actually, I want to ask Mr. Willie, what's the system in the UK for managing the women's team during off-season? Because off-season is very crucial, and how do you manage the women's team?
I think in the off season, you know, first of all, we should never ever underestimate rest and recovery. You know, so important. I see a lot of development between the last day of the season and the first day of pre-season. Players come back, and what you've been telling them every day for 10 months, that you think, I've been telling her that every day for the last 10 months. When they go away and they come back 2 months later, I think it's finally sunk in. So I actually see a lot of development during that close season, just because the subconscious now takes over, and you've not told them that every day, but they actually come back and they've learned it. So I think rest and recovery is huge. We then give the girls programs over the close season break, and there's two areas for us. We either want to maintain what they have, strength, flexibility, mobility. So we either want to maintain those levels, or we want to try and improve weaknesses. So again, a good example is this pandemic. Our season stopped for 2 months, and we were unaware if we were going to come back and play, or if the season was going to be cancelled. And we managed to get really good work in for some of the players at home to do what they would class as boring ankle exercises. So we try and get them to do work on their ankles at the football training ground. It can be seen as pretty boring and mundane, but because they had so little things to do at home, but so much time, suddenly they started dedicating to these weaknesses that we had in them. So for us, the closed season program is about trying to improve those weaknesses and taking the time out to work on ankle stability, work on flexibility, and try and maintain strength. We also manage to monitor the players through daily wellness checks. The players go onto an app on their phone, and there are 7 or 8 questions that they answer. So we still manage to keep that daily contact with the players. And then the psychologist sends out a questionnaire every week, and that has again 5 or 6 questions on it, and we just get a chance to make sure their mental well-being is good. Are they feeling useful? Just to keep them, I suppose make sure we're looking after their welfare. So we can still communicate during that off season, but we also make sure that we're getting them into as good a position as possible to return to training.
Mr. Kirk, there is a vast disparity in nutritional value in our country. How much do you think this has been an impact on the performance level of a player, and how can India improve on that particular discipline?
Yeah, first of all, I think it's a huge impact, a massive impact. I mean, we have a nutritionist at the club that works with us, and I suppose depending on what level you're at in terms of that nutrition, so I think obviously we're at a good level. So we're at the stage now where it's really specific. So we're talking about different carbs on different days, different protein on different days, depending on what the training week looks like. So our nutrition's at an advanced stage that we let the players know how much of each food they should be eating depending on what the training looks like. So it's a really hard day on the pitch. They also have a gym session. They should be eating this. It's match day -1. They should be eating that. So we're really specific with them. Obviously, different countries are at different stages of that. For me, keeping it simple is the best thing. Players need things simplified, or the majority of players need things simplified. If you can get easy to action, advice and guidelines. I don't think we need to be telling them exactly what they need to eat in terms of the food content, but to give them some simple guidelines and simple things that they can do. I've always found it empowering, especially in the women's game. That I think female footballers love to be empowered and to feel that they are in control, and you're not just dictating to them, do this, do that. I think the female players need to feel that they've got ownership of it. So keep it simple and try and empower the players by giving them the information.
Then again comes to the first and second question about the importance of scouting and the grassroots development. So Mr. Kirk, do we need to identify the talent first and then nourish properly to get into the system?
I think so. I think that's the easiest way to do it, is to find that talent and then educate that talent. But yeah, there's no point in doing it the other way around, I don't think. You have to find that talent and then educate it appropriately.
And how much schooling is important? So do you scout in schools as well in England, or only from the academy?
Well, our academy scouts, the local schools, the local grassroots clubs. So that's where our academy gets their players from. So they will scout in schools and grassroots. What I think we can do once they get in the academy is to have better links with the schools that they go to, And that is probably an easy way for us to educate them, not just academically, but on things like nutrition for sport. But again, that's probably a long way away in terms of having our U12s, U10s, U14s in schools that we choose or we have relationships with, to try and educate them on more than just subjects like maths and English and physics and chemistry, but on sport, on nutrition, on the body, how the body works, on business skills, things like that.
All right. So, do you think how important is having a good education alongside playing football?
It's huge. It's absolutely huge, especially in the women's game. There is not enough money not to work after your career. But what we also find is that the best footballers are also very good at education, because if you have the mindset to, not just footballers, but anybody who's in serious sport, if you have the mindset to commit to football, to swimming, to athletics, to boxing, it normally means that is a trait in yourself as a human being. So if you can commit to a sport, you can also commit to education, hopefully. If you're a hard worker in sport, you're a hard worker in life. And we normally find it's the same people that are excelling at both now. I don't know if that's always been the case, because when sport and education used to be separate, and coaches and teachers would probably dismiss the other one, people's education would suffer because they were so dedicated to their sport. But now I think sports coaches understand the importance of education. I think teachers understand the importance of sport. And now together we're finding that it's the same people that are excelling at both because of, as I said, things like commitment and hard work.
All right. Thank you so much again. I would like to ask about the mental health for players. How the psychological part is very important and crucial for the development of the women's team. Not even women's, if any football team, I believe, any sportsman.
Yeah, it's becoming such a big part now. I think we have a global issue around social media.
Okay.
A young footballer, their pressure would come from parents, from teammates, from the coach. Now that pressure is coming from different angles, from different people on social media, and I think we need to be careful that we are educating these footballers on the potential problems of social media. That is one psychological aspect I think that we need to be aware of, that social media is so big now. People want to look good on Instagram, people want to tweet about winning, but what happens when you lose, and what happens when you have a bad day? And you won't tweet about that, but other people will tweet about that. So yeah. I think psychologically, from a social media point of view, we need to be very careful going forward. But I think in both male and female sport, that psychology is becoming so big now. There is a lot of talent across the world in every sport. The world is becoming a smaller place, so your competition to be successful is not just within your own country anymore. It's not even within the same continent. It is now worldwide. So what is going to make the difference? And it's not you being able to kick a ball, it's you being able to kick a ball under pressure. And that pressure is obviously handled well or not well by your psychological strengths. So I think psychology is becoming a very, very big part, and not just again in performance, but in well-being. I think we all know that the better we feel on a day-to-day basis, the better we do our daily jobs. So the happier we are, the more comfortable we are, and with other aspects of our life, means that we can do our job better. And if your job is at an elite level in sport, you also need to have that good well-being in your day-to-day life.
Right, thank you. How do you promote the mass participation in Everton or in England? Because we have to follow the same path in India probably to promote the game of football for women's.
Sorry, in terms of promote?
Yeah, it's participation because football in women's is not popular in India. So what are the pathways you follow to let the women play or let the girls play?
Yeah, to be fair, the association have taken a large lead on that. The association do that for us. The individual clubs have all had a part to play, and years ago, 10 years ago, 8 years ago, when the Women's Super League was created, each club were forced as part of the criteria to have media officers, to have that then developed into schemes where you needed to have so many grassroots clubs connected to you. So you would give away tickets and you would put on football shows before first team games, and grassroots clubs would come and visit. So each club had to do that as part of the criteria to be a women's Super League team. You needed to have a media officer. You needed to have links with the community. So the FA took a large lead on that and almost guided the club. And it comes back to the FA having a plan. What is the plan to grow the game in India? And who is developing that plan, and who has responsibility for that plan? And does the association speak to the clubs? Is it a two-way thing? So what is going to inspire the clubs to grow? Is it the association, or is each club left to their own, to make their own decisions and come up with their own ideas?
Yeah, but I would like to differ a bit to Kuntala, because we have infrastructure, because we have the I-League and the ISL teams, and ISL have a very, very strong infrastructure in terms of, if you're taking up Bangalore, if you are taking about the Jamshedpur FC, so they are brilliant in infrastructure, but are the women encouraged to play there? That's the question from me.
Yeah,
we have infrastructure, but we don't utilize for the women's, I believe, as of now.
Yes, yet it's not used yet, because until and unless this ATK, Bangalore FC, other groups, Tata, those they have good infrastructure, but they have the main infrastructure. What about the women? Are the women getting facility for that? So if they will get facility from there only, if they will be there, then we'll say that infrastructure is there. Otherwise, we have to wait for it.
Yeah, thank you. Like talking to Mr. Kirk from the same topic, that the infrastructure is very key in developing any sports, I believe. Do you have how you develop proper infrastructure over there? Like you utilize the men's infrastructure or the clubs, or you have a separate infrastructure for the women's?
Certainly, one of the things that attracted me to Everton was the infrastructure, and we share the training ground with the men's team. So as you can imagine, a men's Premier League team, they want for nothing. The pitches are perfect. They get good food. The changing rooms are great. There's a swimming pool on site. They've got a fantastic high-tech gym. They have an indoor space to train. So, the fact that the club take the women's team so seriously that they have the women's team as part of that was one of the big attractions. I'm assistant coach at Manchester United. The team that I supported when I was young, one of the biggest teams in the world. It was going to take something pretty special for me to leave. Apart from wanting to be head coach again, it had to be something that was really good, and the infrastructure at the club was fantastic. Our players come into the training ground, have breakfast. They then collect their laundered kit from. The kit is now put out for them, already laundered and washed, So the players then get their kit. They then come into a team meeting in an auditorium. They then go into the gym to do pre-act. They walk out to the perfect pitches that are watered before they get to train on them. They come back in, they get lunch, a fantastic lunch with 3 or 4 choices. They then go into the gym in the afternoon and then potentially go for a swim afterwards. They then put all their kit that they've used all day into a basket for someone to wash and leave. That is a professional infrastructure. We travel to away games on luxury coaches with tables and TVs and coffee machines and kitchens on the bus. We stay in the best 4 and 5 star hotels. So certainly our club are taking the women's team seriously. But that didn't happen overnight. That happened over a long period of time. Now we are hoping to sign a top international player in the current transfer window. She was at Everton. She left Everton in 2012 or 2013. So the Everton that she knew back then and the Everton that she knows now it's just completely different. Apart from the badge, that's the only thing that's stayed the same. So yeah, that infrastructure took a while to build, and we're still building it. It's not perfect, and even when I went on day one, we didn't get breakfast. We only ever had lunch. The players washed their own kit. We never got access to the swimming pool. We sometimes had to train on AstroTurf instead of grass, and that was only 18 months ago. So even we made 4 or 5 little changes last summer, and the players felt a big difference between leaving at the end of the season and coming back for the new season. We made 4 or 5 what I think was small changes, but it made a big difference to the players. So that infrastructure is taking a long time to build, and we're still trying to build it.
I'm not sure in India how many women are actually present at an executive committee level. And in the English FA, again, Willie, I'm not sure, but if there are, do you both think that will have an impact on how the women's game will, develop in England here and in India?
I don't think it's essential, but I think it helps. If we look at this forum, we've got 2 females and 3 males. So we've got 3 males who care about the women's game.
Yeah.
So we need to find males that care about the women's game, or we need females on the board.
Yeah.
Now at our club, we are fortunate, I think, that our chief executive is a woman. Now she says that she makes these decisions because they're the right decisions, not because she's a woman.
Sure.
But I do think it helps. At the FA, I think there is a mix. There are a lot of women on the women's board. I think there's 1 or 2 on the generic FA board. I know that one thing that they've started doing is making sure the best women's coaches are being brought under the England sort of banner. So obviously Phil Neville is the head coach, but your U21s is a woman, your U19s is a woman, your U18s is a woman. I think 5 of the 6 underage teams are all women's head coaches now. And again, that takes a while because we need the best coaches and not just women coaches. But if we can have both, I think that can be powerful, and that is allowing the FA to continue to develop the women's game by not just recruiting women's coaches, but very, very good women's coaches.
All right, Mr. Kirk, are you like, we don't have that infrastructure and that ground actually. So is it better to start women's football through futsal? 5-a-side game, small little interest created among the women to take part, and then something like that? Will it help?
I really like futsal as a skill acquisition program. I think you can. I think there's a balance between. I've met some players who have transitioned from futsal to 11-a-side football too late, and they've really struggled with the 11-a-side game. They look like futsal players trying to play 11-a-side, but I think in terms of kids and getting an interest in the game, I think futsal is a fantastic introduction. It's obviously smaller numbers, so we don't need to make sure that in this area or this village or this town we need 16 players. We can do it with smaller numbers, so I think it's a good way to introduce them. And then with the football we see on TV, that is then the inspiration for these players to transition from futsal to football. But I certainly think futsal is a great introduction to the game. Listen, I think, first of all, I think I said at the start, it's an honour to be invited to come and speak, and certainly any assistance and help in the future, I'm happy to help. And I think going back to one of Amit's questions about getting that link between teams and India and helping to grow the game in the country, I think there's mutual benefits. So if it's something we can explore in the future, I'm sure we can. But no, thanks for the time.
লেটেস্ট নিউজ আর এক্সক্লুসিভ ভিডিওর সঙ্গে আপডেট থাকতে এখনই সাবস্ক্রাইব করুন আমাদের ইউটিউব চ্যানেল। বেল আইকনে ক্লিক করতে ভুলবেন না যেন।